Good morning, everybody. How is everybody doing? I personally did not sleep all night. Sorry for the delay. We have a new president in the United States. His name is Donald Trump. In a shocker victory, he won enough electoral votes in swing states to win the presidency. It seems that he hasn't won the popular vote, but it doesn't matter. It was a very, very, very long night. And eventually he won. The last nail came from a Rust Belt state of Wisconsin. He won also Pennsylvania, and he won Florida. At the beginning, Florida seemed to go for Clinton because of Hispanic voting, because of reports of early voting, but it became tighter there. She hardly won Virginia during the night. Eventually also lost North Carolina. Things looked more complicated in Michigan. Haven't checked out how that ended. And it eventually became clear that Trump has outperformed and she has underperformed. So this wasn't a total shock. Remember, the polls were quite close. So the polls showed her leading around nationally around 3.5%, and in the popular vote she won by 1%. So it's within the margin of error, 2.5%. But everybody expected her to win, of course, in the swing states, to win Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, of course, Wisconsin, and this didn't happen. As things became clearer and clearer, of course, it took a long time. It wasn't that easy, and remember, it's a very close vote. The market reacted. Okay, so let's begin here with dollar yen. What I forgot to say, as usual, let me put my let's put the data on before the charts. As usual, you're welcome to ask any questions. Let me get this. If you cannot see the chat box for any reason under the screen, alongside the screen, please go to the address here, tlk.io/fxstreet-forex-live-video. Okay, I'll be monitoring this box, of course, throughout the video. Okay, so let's begin with the charts because they tell us most of the story. Okay, so this is the hourly chart of dollar yen. For me, the best sort of market mover for this. It's a risk. The yen is a risk-off currency, and we have dollar yen. Well, throughout the week began higher with the weekend gap after the FBI cleared Clinton. Remember, it seems like long history. Sunday night, Monday morning. Anyway, dollar yen continued climbing. There were reports during yesterday that the turnout is higher for Clinton in places where she has better majorities. So that helped more of a risk-on sentiment. But then eventually polls came in. We've seen dollar yen reach a peak of 105.50. Okay, resistance. It fell all the way to 101. So actually there was high liquidity in markets, and technical levels were maintained. Now we're seeing a big bounce from 101 all the way up to 103.65 at the time of, well, when I'm talking right now. It reflects a few things. Okay, we're seeing a similar phenomenon elsewhere. We're seeing the US dollar rebounding in other places as well. Okay, so what is actually going on? I'll put the camera on myself once again. First of all, there's a phenomenon of buy the rumor, sell the fact. Okay, markets already understood that this shock decision that is bad for markets, bad for international relations, also other political things I shouldn't get into, but for markets, it's not what markets wanted. Less trade, more protectionism. Anyway, markets understood that much earlier in the night. Okay, so we had a gradual fall. But eventually we had this waiting game in the last 2 hours. The election was called officially at around 1:30 Eastern. That's 7:30. No, that's, well, it was called around 2:30. Sorry, 2:30 Eastern time. That's 7:30 GMT. Longer than markets had expected. The results were clear. It was just a waiting game just to get that final nail. And in the meantime, traders began taking profits. Remember, there was high liquidity during the night, not your typical Asian session with the desks in London and in New York staffed. So basically, the announcement came, official announcement came while Europeans were already trading just before the markets opened, and that's why we've seen the US dollar rebound quite nicely. In addition, there are differences between the various rebounds, okay? So let's go back to the chart. Now, dollar yen is still much lower. But for those of you that have followed me, I mentioned that the rise in euro dollar is not really sustainable. Okay, so dollar yen fell around 1.5%. Well, fell more, but now it's made a comeback. Euro dollar did breach this line of 112.80. This pair didn't behave very nicely, but we had it fall back. It's still above the pre-announcement level, still, but getting there. Okay, just under 111. Okay, so we are seeing the euro is not a risk currency, not having the same reaction. The pound is even starker, even though the pound had an excellent week last week. Look, it went all the way up to 125.40, and now it's back down to 124. Basically, not much changed. Okay, so it's more the risk currencies, and it's I believe that euro dollar, pound dollar, and other currencies can fall as well. We'll do a technical segment soon, but I want just to mention that euro and pound are sort of more mixed, and risk currencies, commodity currencies are weaker. The Canadian dollar reached new 8-month highs. Also here we're seeing it retreat, but some gains. Aussie dollar is down quite a bit, well, from the highs. New Zealand dollar, everything like that. One currency that of course stands out is the build-the-wall currency, the Mexican peso. Its dollar Mexican peso is up 8%. At some point during the night, it was already up %. Okay, now I know it's an exotic currency, but it's not such an exotic country. It's quite a big country. Okay, so quite a big deal there. And of course, oil fell, and they think, yeah, it's also recovering, but things aren't looking that good. So all in all, we had a shock decision, a shock vote in the United States. We had a big risk-averse reaction. If anybody trades stocks as well, the Nikkei collapsed, closed down over with a drop of over 5 points. S&P futures, Dow futures were down 500, 800 points at some point during the night. Things are stabilizing again, and buy the rumor, sell the fact. I still think that Trump's election is bad for the world, bad for stock markets, and that markets will eventually continue falling. It'll be a risk off of it. It'll probably push back a rate hike by Janet Yellen. Okay, but reactions tend to be exaggerated, and then we're seeing this kind of comeback. Okay, that's a big deal, and I hope you can hear my voice clearly. I'm very tired, but I'm in focus, had my coffee. Okay, so now let's do a technical segment. Just follow the charts. Let's do it separately this time for majors and minors. So this is a technical segment for major currency pairs. Major currency pairs will begin with euro dollar. Euro dollar currently at 111. Already went on fear of Trump. The US dollar sold off. It went as high as 113. Very temporary move over there, as we were seeing buy the rumor, sell the fact. Currently under 111.25. So this break once again above 111.25. I see it as a false break. Let's see how things, if the pair stabilizes, support at 110, further support 109.60, 109.10, and 108.50. On the top side, if we see it resume its rise, although again, not at risk on currency, sorry, not a risk off currency, not a safe haven, 112 and 112.80. I still see these technical lines holding on over there. Pound dollar above its pre-Trump levels. I still think it will respect lines here. So on the downside, if we see a fall to the downside, 123.50. Further below 122.50 and 121. To the upside, we have 124.50 and 125.60. I see lines as respected, as we had a very special event. Dollar yen here, of course, we're seeing a bigger move to the downside, and I think we have a bit better chance of falling. 103.40 is a weak line of resistance. 104.60 still worth mentioning, and the 105.50 line well respected. I believe we'll fall to the downside, so if we look over there, it's 102.50. 101, the pair bounced off this level by just a bit. 199, so 3 round levels over there in dollar yen. Dollar CAD breached the 134.60 line, a very strong line, major breakout, but once again is false. So above this line we have resistance at 135.20. I believe the Canadian dollar can weaken as it's a risk currency. Worsening trade relations can worsen things for the Canadian dollar with President Trump. 136.60 and 140 are lines on the top side. On the downside, we have 133.50 and 132.80. Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar currently 76.60, basically well entrenched in range. 77.40 remains the top line despite a move a bit higher over there. Remember, risk on. If Clinton would have won, something that did not happen, I believe you would have seen the Australian dollar continue higher, risk on, but no success there. 77.60, 77.40, 77 to the downside. We have 76, 75.30, and the round number of 75. Kiwi dollar 73.07 at the moment. To the top side 73.60, 74.10, and the round number of 75. But to the downside, again, it's a risk currency. 72.70, 72, and 71. Dollar Swiss. The Swiss franc is already once again a safe haven. So demand for the Swiss franc sent it lower, but now we're seeing it bounce back. Watch out for any intervention or signs of interventions by the Swiss National Bank. Okay, so this could push the pair higher. Maybe it's already in play. So 98.20, 99 and parity are the lines to the upside. To the downside, we have 96.60, 95.50, and 94.60. Okay, these are our major pairs. Okay, so that was technical lines for President Trump for major pairs. Now, technical lines for President Trump for crosses, and we'll touch some exotic currencies. One of them. We'll begin with maybe the most exotic one, dollar Mexican peso. I don't usually follow this, but I don't believe we'll break above 2080, at least not now, maybe later. Again, Trump has called Mexicans very bad names, and I believe this will worsen relations. Perhaps the reaction was exaggerated. 20 level is worth mentioning. 2080 to the downside, if we have further recovery, it's 1920, and below 1920 we have 1870, and below that the round number of 18. Let's go back to the currencies we usually talk about, and crosses indeed. So Euro Swiss 108.12, nicely in range. I think 107.60 sort of line in the sand for this, and these choppy moves over there are not only the various states in the United States that were called or not called, but also intervention by the Swiss National Bank. 108 to 110 is the level. I think 107.60 is the line in the sand. So I think we'll get back to range, and I think all hands are on deck at the Swiss National Bank. Euro pound, look at this big move here. That means that the reaction is asymmetric. So at first, we had the euro strengthening more than the pound, the pair rising above 90, making a break, eventually a false break. Now it's battling the line of support at 89.50, and further below we have 88.80 still holding, and 88. This could stabilize. I believe the pound does have an advantage over the euro, at least for the short term. The Bank of England has become neutral instead of bearish. Euro Swiss 114.70 at the moment. Sorry, Euro Yen. Euro Yen. Big fall over there. The yen is the ultimate safe haven currency. 114.50 support. Further support 113.80 and 112. Resistance 115.80 and 116.50. And the dragon, the Gepi, British pound against the Japanese yen, support here at 106. Sorry, 126.80. Lack of sleep confuses me. Higher above 129 and then 130.40. I believe there is potential to the downside in this pair. 124 was the post-Brexit low. And topping off our talk about crosses and exotics, and also one commodity, oil prices. Oil prices fell sharply as news came out of a Trump victory. I believe it has more room to the downside, especially as OPEC seems unable to agree on anything. So 42.50 is a line to the downside, further 40 and 39. To the upside, we have 45.30 and 49. Okay, so that completes our crosses for President-elect Donald Trump. Okay, what else have we got for you? Let's see if we have any questions. No questions here. Basically, it's all about the elections in the upcoming days. I will mention we have consumer confidence on Friday. Shouldn't be such a big deal because the markets are focused on elections, and the consumer confidence measure will not measure the reaction to the elections. We'll have to hear more from Fed speakers to see if they put a rate hike on hold. In theory, they're not supposed to react to political events, but I believe they'll move the needle. Next week, we'll have time to react to the elections. There will be a ton of books written about these elections. The big upset, which was not totally expected by the polls, but yeah, once again. So what we'll do now is move to the preview for next week's events. I think next week we could already have more normal trading. Okay, so let's do it. This is the preview for the week of November 14th to November 18th, the week after the US presidential elections. Needless to say, we'll have even more reactions also next week, but most of the reactions, I believe, will be seen today, tomorrow, and on Friday. So next week we do have events. So in terms of economic indicators, we have very few this week, sort of moving away to the Hi, can you see me? Am I back on air? Sorry for that. For those of you that have, let's just do the preview. Let's begin from the preview once again. Sorry for the technical issues. It's all Trump's fault. Just kidding. So this is the preview for the week of November 14th to November 18th, the week after the presidential elections. So we have, of course, still ongoing impact of the elections, but there are significant events. On Monday, Japanese GDP critical for the decision of the Bank of Japan, the next decision. Chinese industrial output follows suit. Second-tier figure for the Australian dollar. We also have retail sales for those of you trading the Kiwi. On Tuesday, we have German GDP figures. We had Eurozone figures from Spain, France, and even for the whole Eurozone, but not for the biggest country. And this does have a big impact. We also have UK CPI. We'll see if the decision by the Bank of England to not move on interest rates was indeed justified. And I realize I'm not sharing my screen with you, so you can see everything here on the screen. Let's continue with, that's the first slide for the preview for next week. More events on Tuesday. We have, of course, the full Eurozone GDP, now updated, but Germany is more important. US retail sales. Did Americans buy more in October before the elections or not? Always a big figure, always important for the Fed. We have milk figures for New Zealand for those trading the Kiwi. On Wednesday, we have another important release from the United Kingdom, the jobs report. Let's see if things are getting better or getting worse. The jobless claims for October and unemployment rate for September. Maybe we'll see Brexit beginning to kick in. We also have on Wednesday producer prices, which are not that important, but a warm-up to the CPI and the regular oil report to impact oil prices and the Canadian dollar. On Thursday, we have the Australian jobs report. Let's see if it continues being stable, pushing out any chance of a rate hike. Housing data in the United States, building permits and housing starts, which often offset each other. And CPI, inflation figures in the United States, in theory, they should be rising, wages are rising, and they should support a Fed rate hike, but nothing is certain. And Friday is a bit more quiet, maybe another opportunity to reflect on the US elections. We have only Canadian inflation. So that was a preview for the week of November 14th to November 18th, the week after the US elections, where economic indicators will begin having their impact bit by bit. Okay. Yeah, sorry again for all the technical issues. We'll now do a wrap up for today. So this is a wrap up for Live Market Open for November 9th, the day after the elections. Donald Trump has been elected as the president of the United States of America. Hillary Clinton conceded. It was a very tight race. She actually, as far as I know, won the popular vote, but lost key swing states. The last nail was the Rust Belt state of Wisconsin. Okay, so that was the main event. Everything else is basically minor. We've seen big risk-off movement, but it was followed by a sort of buy the rumor, sell the fact. So, for instance, Eurodollar went all the way up to 113, but then most of the gains were raised. We're back to level of 111.25. Watch out for 112, 112.80, and 110, 119.60 on the downside. Pound dollar also a little changed. Eventually did go up. The US dollar did weaken, but again, the pound is not a safe haven. Went all the way to 125.40 and back down to 124.25. Support 123.50 and 122.50. The biggest risk-off reaction, of course, is the ultimate safe haven currency. The Japanese yen went all the way up to 105.50 on hopes for a Clinton win, for a big turnout of Hispanics in Florida, and went all the way from 105.50 to 101. Bang on expectations, very good technical behavior. Bounced back with the buy the rumor, sell the fact. 103.40 is the new level. New level to watch is resistance. Watch out for 102, 102.50, and 101. The top side 104.60 and 105.50. Dollar CAD reached new highs. And risk off then, well, moved in an erratic fashion, still higher, still a sell-off of the Canadian dollar, the currency that is used by one of America's neighbors. 133.50 to 134.60 is the current range. Aussie dollar, also risk-off reaction, sell-off of the Australian dollar, also a recovery, but we're in lower ground. 76.50 current level, 77, 77.40, and 77.60 are the levels to watch on the top side. 76, 75.30, and 75 to the downside. And we'll finish with the Kiwi. No, we'll finish with the Mexican peso. The Kiwi also risk-off fell under 73 cents, 73.60, 75 resistance, 72, 70, and 72 lines of support. Now, we'll mention also the Swiss franc because it's still a safe haven. Moved up on hopes for Hillary Clinton, collapsed with Trump, now balancing out. 97.30 is the current level, more or less. 97, 96.60, and 95.50 are levels to watch to the downside. To the top side, 98.20 and parity. And the Mexican peso, can't talk about the US elections, can't talk about Donald Trump without talking about Mexico. Currently 10% to the upside. There was some bounce, but now it's going back again. A 13% fall for the Mexican peso at the peak. Maybe we'll exceed that. Levels to watch 20.80, 20 to the downside now, and 18.80 and 18.10. Okay, so this is just to remind you the forecast of 538. They had it very close in many states. They did see Clinton as favorite, but eventually she did win Nevada, but she did lose Pennsylvania, which was supposed to be hers, 77% chance. That was the big upset. Same thing for Wisconsin, 83% chance, and Trump won there. Iowa, also Trump won. Florida, which was, well, supposed to be close, Trump won. And North Carolina, Trump won as well, also very close. Clinton lost those toss-up states and also some of her firewall to lose the election. Big day. One last look before we say goodbye. The chances of a rate hike in the United States in December. The screen is refreshing. Well, still high chances. Let's see if it gets updated in the US session. Still 76% chance of a rate hike in the United States. Okay, so I guess that's it for today. Sorry for all the technical issues. Everything will be available as reruns. The technical segments, the wrap-up, and the full show. That's it. Donald Trump has been elected. Markets are basically devastated, but we've also seen a buy the rumor, sell the fact. We'll be back next week with a regular show with all the previews, all the regular segments. And this was a really special show with the red eyes. I wish everybody a safe and successful day. Volatility is expected to remain quite high. So stay safe. Remember, some brokers have some limitations on trade because of high volatility. So be careful out there. And that's it for now. Thank you and bye-bye.